And Chris, how about over at Quest Software? Give us a sort of a paint a picture of the top line. What are you seeing over there? How's it working in regards to these agencies trying to implement the zero trust architecture?
Morning. Thanks, Luke. So the key word there is working. And I like the idea that we all pretty much agree that there is no one solution for achieving a zero trust architecture. There is no destination. It's just a train that we just can't get off of, quite frankly, and it will keep on going. So the important thing to understand within these organizations, and when we talk to our customers, and I have the benefit of working across both our public sector organizations as well as some of our commercial counterparts, and I see what they're doing, and then also our DoD and civilian customers. And depending on who you talk to, there's a varying degree of either hope or despair. And I just want to be frank about that. The key thing I would like to come back to is that the executive order, for instance, which was great because it pointed out some very key things. You need to basically detect something, you have to remediate something, and you have to respond. Those three things encompass so much. And I like that Shane talked about the fact that you're going to have to get used to automation. You're going to have to do things, quite frankly, that humans can't do. That is, when Mark said about identifying packets of microsegmentation, you have to be able to adapt as quickly as the network adapts. Advanced persistent threats don't just sit dormantly sometimes. They are very active. Those lateral movements that happen, like, Luke talked about an OPM, are indicative of one of our Achilles heels, and it's a large technical debt we have of aging infrastructure. And while we like the idea of the new, modern, really cool architecture, there are some very old things sitting in our networks. And I won't name agencies because
Sure.
I don't like talking about my customers in that way, but the more technical debt we have, the harder it is to identify for things like the endpoints, the data that sits on those endpoints, the applications that depend on those endpoints. So for instance, our strategy when we walk in is to, one, do a lot of identification of what's actually in a network, what's in an architecture, for instance. And then we ask our customers basically maybe 5 or 6 basic questions about, one, how are you managing that, monitoring that? How are you securing it, protecting it? How do you consolidate it, and how do you migrate it if you have to? And depending on their answers to those questions, we'll look into our portfolio and try to determine exactly what's the right solution stack for that particular client. But we found that once you identify and admit that you have to have some sort of architecture, whether you agree with these things or not. And this is a great point because we say back in 2019, zero trust at NIST started. Well, let's be honest. We've been talking about zero trust, least privilege, for instance, access controls forever. I've been doing this since, Banyan Vines. I'm just going to embarrass myself. Okay. And we now understand that all those objects, all that content that flies across our wires needs a lot of attention. And so we're helping our customers identify those endpoints, identify those data, but more importantly, as Mark pointed out, what are those applications doing? Where are they, quite frankly? So we look at that architecture and yes, we'll apply a lot of solutions, but I think our customers now realize that, oh my goodness, there isn't just one silver bullet we can touch. For instance, there isn't just one magic solution. And now we've learned also as a vendor to work with both customer and competitor and other agencies within the federal government to think about exactly what's the right approach to zero trust and how is the right model applicable for a specific agency and its specific mission.